Personal responsibility. That is the theme of our first story today. Some people really need to take control of their lives and their mouths and what they say and what they shouldn't say. G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now, if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some more of my ramblings. Let's go. Am I the asshole for not taking my husband to my brother-in-law's funeral after he went against my sister's wishes? So my sister's husband was sick for over 6 months. In the past couple of months, he got worse. They have 2 kids, nephew is 4 and niece is 6. I agreed to take the kids in to look after them and help my sister focus on her husband. A week ago, I got a call at 6:50 from my sister crying, telling me her husband had just passed away. It was so devastating. I was still in bed when I got the news. I checked on the kids and they were asleep. I had to go see my sister and be with her. I asked my husband to keep an eye on the kids and warned him to not tell them about their father's passing till their mum got there and told them herself in her own way, since she made me a promise to wait to tell them herself. He nodded but said telling them the sooner the better. I told him it was none of his business and he needed to respect their mother's wish. He said I could go and he would watch the kids. An hour later, my phone rang while I was with my sister, and it was my husband telling me to get home ASAP because the kids had a breakdown after he told them their father passed. I was so dumbfounded and so mad and helpless. I asked why he told them, but I couldn't hear his reply because the kids were crying loudly in the background. Their mother heard and figured they found out. She told me to drive her to see them. I apologized for what my husband did, but she didn't respond. We got home and it was a mess. My heart sank seeing the kids crying for their dad like that. Their mum took them inside and shut the door. I lost it on my husband and he said he didn't want to say anything and even made them breakfast, but when he heard the kids talk about what they were going to do when they see their dad, he soon felt he had the urge to tell them. I yelled at him for going against my sister's wishes. He apologized to my sister, but she said she doesn't want to see him because the kids stopped talking from their trauma. He wanted to go to the funeral, but I told him my sister doesn't want to see him and I'm respecting her wish. He got upset seeing I excluded him from a family event which was unfair and flat out petty. He said he couldn't help it, so I shouldn't hold him accountable because it just happened. But I felt ashamed and a major letdown for my sister because she stated her wishes and he didn't respect them. Yeah, I'm just gonna go straight out of the gates and say he's an asshole. Plain and simple. This has nothing to do with him. This has absolutely nothing to do with him. He is excluded from this family event, and I'm not sure funerals are particularly family events. That puts it in a positive light. This is a really negative light, and you don't particularly want to be going to funerals or want them happening to your family in the first place. It's not unfair, and it's not flat out petty. He's denying his actions, he's denying the existence of other people's feelings and the trauma he's caused to these kids, and this is the consequence of him not listening and not doing what you tell him to do. If I were you though, OP, I would feel a bit of shame that your husband does this, and I would reconsider my future with this person. This isn't a heat-of-the-moment kind of decision that he's like, oh, I messed up, I really messed up, I will never do this again. This is a choice that he had so much warning for, and he still chose to do it anyway against all common sense and all common knowledge. That is not normal. Not the asshole OP, but yikes. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I was babysitting for a family friend while they were at the hospital saying goodbye to their other child. I knew that their son had died, but I kept my mouth shut and loved on their daughter, who was talking about going to see her brother until they got home because it was 100,000% not my place to say anything. It didn't even cross my mind to tell her, even though I had to leave the room a few times to wipe my eyes and regain composure. Exactly. Children that young are easily distracted as well. He really couldn't throw the TV on for a few hours until their mum came? Nah, he totally wanted to hurt those kids by telling them. Or if not explicitly to hurt them, at least to center himself in the narrative. Oh, poor me. I had to tell those cute little kids their dad was dead. Do you know how hard that was for me? Etc. That, or he couldn't handle the guilt of knowing when they didn't. Still selfish, but in a more cowardly way. Hearing them talk about him made me sad, and I didn't know how to deal with that, so I just broke their worlds instead. Not the asshole. Now your husband wants to show up and cause drama with the widow at a funeral? Is he crazy? You need to take a very hard line with this guy. Telling the kids against sister-in-law's wishes was all about him and him just not being able to help it. Brother-in-law's funeral is all about him and being included in a family event he isn't wanted at. He didn't even really apologize, and him saying I couldn't help it negates the apology. Him doing this, plus his insisting to go to a funeral he's not welcome at, would seriously damage my marriage if this was me. Zero accountability, remorse, contrition, making it all about himself. And he couldn't even deal with the consequences once he opened his mouth. He spilled and immediately needed his wife to come home to talk to the kids because he couldn't deal. So their mum ended up having to talk them through it anyway. But she didn't have the grace of a few minutes to feel her own feelings for a moment. I don't believe in groveling, but this is such an egocentric, incompetent series of choices that he should be on his knees for forgiveness, not making more egocentric demands. Our next post is by user Russell201257 titled, Am I the asshole for banning my niece from the house for throwing away all of my son's school supplies? So I, male 43, have a 15-year-old son, Kevin, who started working a summer job for a while. He managed to save up for a new laptop that he uses for his YouTube channel or gaming channel. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so my niece Chloe, who is 19, visits us a lot to hang out with my older daughter, who is 18. Kevin spends his time in his room when he's not working or studying. He doesn't like when Chloe teases him all the time. It annoys him, and I brought this up with my wife, but she said that's normal cousin teasing, and is nothing strange. Chloe saw Kevin's new laptop and wanted to borrow it for her project, but Kevin said no. His reason is that Chloe has a habit of ruining stuff and his laptop is relatively new, so it's normal that he feels overprotective of it. Chloe asked me if I could talk Kevin into giving her the laptop a few days ago, and I told her no means no, and she should just let it go. Well, yesterday Chloe visited while I was out. I came home and found Kevin crying, saying Chloe took all his school supplies from his room and left with them after he refused to let her go home with his laptop. I was infuriated. My wife said she didn't know Chloe took all of Kevin's school supplies with her, and she must have hid them. I called my sister-in-law and told her to ask Chloe to bring everything she took back. She denied any of this happening, so I drove to my in-laws to get this settled. I confronted Chloe, and she admitted to taking the supplies, but said that Kevin denied to let her take the laptop, even after she offered him money, which made him a jerk in her eyes. I demanded that she give the supplies back since they were all that Kevin had, but she said she dumped them somewhere on the way home when her boyfriend gave her a ride. I flipped out and shamed her for this attitude, and said that she's banned from my house till she could change her attitude and is willing to make it up for her cousin. My sister-in-law criticized my decision and called my wife, who said Chloe is a teenager acting out, but shouldn't be banned from her aunt's house. I said no more discussing this, and my wife got upset, saying that I went too far with the ban. She said she'll talk to Kevin, and if he agreed to forgive Chloe and let her continue to visit, then there's nothing I can do then, since my daughter also wants her cousin in the house. Am I the asshole? Additional info. A. My wife is the type who says we can't call family thieves or bullies. B. They told me, sister-in-law, that Chloe didn't steal, but more like was mad at Kevin for how he treated her, and was trying to get back at him, but what's done is done. C. My older daughter also disagrees with me because she wants Chloe to be able to visit, like always. And D. When I talked to Chloe about what she did, she had no problem nor shame explaining what she did and why she did it. In other words, she was unapologetic about her actions. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I may be the asshole because banning my niece from the house might be an extreme reaction, and since my decision upset my wife, that I must have been inconsiderate and made a hasty decision. Now in the comments, CM Lobu says, "Not the asshole. She's 19. She's an adult throwing a tantrum because she didn't get her way. It's obvious why Kevin didn't want to lend her his laptop. Tell them that if Chloe pays for the things she destroyed and apologizes to Kevin, she can come back, and still won't be allowed to use the laptop." I think the wife is the biggest asshole in this situation. She allowed her own child to be constantly bullied and let her relatives walk all over her family. This is a symptom of a much bigger issue if the wife thinks this is normal behavior. The wife is a huge asshole. Enabling the bullying and poor treatment of her own son in his home. Absolute asshole, poor Kevin. I can't wait for the sequel to this where Kevin's over 18 and he went no contact with his cousin and her parents, low contact with his mother and sister, and only has a relationship with OP. But everyone is harassing OP to push Kevin to be more involved with the family. The Final Frontier says, "Not the asshole. But what the heck is wrong with your wife? She should be supporting her son, especially when he's a victim of bullying from her sister's bratty adult daughter." The wife was the previous scapegoat in her family. The family has picked a new scapegoat, and she's secretly happy they don't treat her like crap anymore. In fact, she's able to bond with them by allowing and participating in his bullying. Signed, a scapegoat whose mother gladly fed her to the wolves to be accepted. This is huge and probably spot on. Wife seems like quite the pushover, and the never call family thieves BS. I'm quite shocked that she's completely okay with someone coming into her house and just leaving with or stealing crap. Not the asshole. Chloe is a thief, a bully, and an asshole. So is her mum, your wife, your daughter, and anyone else who thinks what Chloe did is okay or just normal cousin teasing. Do not let your wife browbeat Kevin into forgiving her. She needs to stay away from him. Our next post is by user Roffoball, titled, "Am I the asshole for giving my brother's girlfriend a place to stay in secret from him?" So my older brother Nick has always been a little troubled, but a few years ago he met a girl I'll call Mia who seemed to get him on the straight and narrow. I met up with Mia for dinner recently to catch up. She seemed anxious and upset, and after a while, she opened up about how Nick was getting really jealous and controlling and was jeopardizing her ability to finish college. He was having issues with her living in an apartment where she could be having other men over. He was having issues with her being in study groups and classes with mostly men in her engineering degree. He even contacted some of her professors behind her back because he did not want her on group projects with men. My advice to her is that her education is the most important thing right now, that she should focus on her upcoming senior year, even if that means making it a priority over her relationship. She said she was worried she wouldn't be able to do that without angering him. He had shown up unexpected and angry a few times to her apartment, and she had to deal with him until he'd calmed down, and she was missing deadlines. She admitted she felt like she didn't want to be with him anymore, but she was scared of what would happen if she broke up with him. He's paying for some of her school costs, and she doesn't have family support, plus he wouldn't take it well, she thought, and she wouldn't feel comfortable staying in her apartment. I told her that she could stay with me for senior year, pay me below market rent, and use the savings to cover other expenses. The only thing I'd ask is that she doesn't tell Nick where she's living, or that she's still going to the same college or anything like that, because I didn't want to deal with the drama of having him show up at my house with a bone to pick. She agreed and moved in as a roommate. She lost his number and locked down her social media, switched jobs, and told her professor to not answer his emails, and all of that. But then my mum came to visit unannounced and saw an Amazon package in the driveway addressed to Mia. She found out I was roommates with her now, and it helped her disappear on Nick. She was really upset with me because family comes first, and Nick had been spiraling after his girlfriend ghosted him with no explanation, and that it was terrible of me to help her leave him without even a breakup or explaining. I said that he was hurting her chances of finishing college, and I felt like that was more important than a boyfriend. Hadn't she always told me to focus on my school and career and not get sidetracked by boys? If she knew what was best for her own daughter, couldn't she want the same for someone else's daughter? Then she said that I was twisting her words. There's a difference between focusing on school and ending a relationship that was headed towards engagement with only a message saying to leave her alone. Am I the asshole for helping my brother's girlfriend leave him quietly? I feel like of all people in this world that is exposed to this son, this mother should know what he's like, how he reacts to these things, and how this relationship has been going. I don't understand how she can see him spiraling, being aggressive, being an absolute piece of garbage, and say that this is a relationship headed towards engagement, and that her message to him saying that to leave her alone is somehow OP's fault. Like OP is the one trying to keep them apart, and there was nothing wrong in that relationship before this. There has got to be a screw loose with this woman if she's saying that OP is twisting her words, because there is no difference in this situation. She, in fact, is the only one twisting words, and on top of that, twisting reality to something that it isn't. I feel like she's in denial of the reality of her abusive son and his actions, and the potential danger he poses to this girl, this ex-girlfriend now. So to me, the mother in this story, huge asshole, huge enabler, as is the son. I don't know what to do with someone like that. Obviously, ghosting is not great. It is frowned upon, and maybe enabling ghosting is a bad thing in this instance. I would say it's justified completely here, and that OP is not an asshole for doing so and protecting someone that is vulnerable and is going to be abused more than likely. So, not the asshole OP. If you see K says, not the asshole, but let's say what you did. You helped her escape an abusive relationship. Your brother is controlling to the point that she doesn't feel safe leaving him. The asshole here, apart obviously from your brother, is your mum, whose golden child can do no wrong. If she was like this every time he did something wrong growing up, it is probably the reason he is like this towards women. Make sure your mum understands how bad it is and does not tell him she's there. And if possible, help the poor girl organize a plan B, in case he found out and poses a threat to her. Good job helping this girl, but this is far more serious than a jealous college boyfriend. I'm worried that mum will be a flying monkey to Nick and tell him where Mia is hiding. Same. I can't for the life of me figure out why OP didn't explain more of this to her mum instead of acting like it was all about focusing on school. Unless maybe OP didn't want to tell her mum Mia's personal business, which I guess now that I think about it was probably correct. Still, she could have made it clear, in my opinion, without going into details and betraying Mia's confidence. And so much more, Eagle says, not the asshole. You need to get her away from him. Your brother is controlling and abusive. He called her professor to say that she can't be in any groups with men. That's insane. Marrying your brother would be the biggest mistake of her life. But it's also not right that she's staying with him so he will pay for her school. It would have been a control tactic, making her reliant on him, and as such, she has to do X, Y, Z, etc. Financial coercion is unfortunately normal in abusive relationships. And it would have gotten to the point where he would convince her that she didn't need college because after all, he's there to look after her, right? With bonus knocking her up first chance he got to keep her under his thumb. Not the asshole OP. And Stoop says, not the asshole, and the response to your mother was absolutely on the money. She didn't like it when her double standard was called out. Sorry to say this, but your brother was being controlling and emotionally abusive. Good on you for saving her from having to deal with potential further abuse and helping her to finish her degree. Our next post is by user Lock4356899, titled, Am I the asshole for getting a lock for my office door despite my husband's disapproval? So me and my husband have been married for 10 years, and we have 2 kids. My husband is currently unemployed, but I recently started working from home in my office for 5 hours. The thing is, my husband would constantly barge into my office and interrupt my work over simple requests he could get done himself. My work is usually with group, and we constantly have group meetings to discuss projects. Requests such as, can you fix this issue in my phone? Can you get the kids ready while I take a shower? Can you watch the oven while I make this phone call? Complaining about the dishwasher, faucet, mixer, and computer not working, and asking me to stop working to get them fixed. And he'd also send the kids in all the time for me to brush their hair or just to fix a zipper. I've talked to him about how this has been impacting my work. I already handle the chores when I'm not working, so I think 5 hours of work should be respected. He would apologize and say he didn't know, then do it again and say it was spontaneously. 2 days ago, I had an important meeting and he barged in, interrupted my meeting, asking me to fix his tie because he was going out later. It was horrible in front of my colleagues and superiors. I bought a lock later and installed it. When my husband got home in the evening and saw it, he looked absolutely shocked. He asked what the lock was for, and I replied that because of him interrupting my work sessions, this was my only way. He sent the kids to their room and then argued, saying, "I can't believe you want to act like the kids and I are not even here and lock us out like that." I argued that I didn't appreciate how disrespected my boundaries were and how I thought the lock is the only solution after I've exhausted all of my options. He pitched a fit, saying the lock is not a good solution, and expressed how hurt he was feeling. He asked, "Imagine how the kids are going to feel when they see it," then went outside to smoke. He kept saying that I should remove it. Am I the asshole? I'm going to need to know how OP thinks they're the asshole. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole for not discussing it with him, and also for not considering how he felt about the lock on the door. Sorry, why do you need to discuss getting a lock for a door in your house to your husband? Can this not be a unilateral decision given the circumstances of what's going on? Or is me not being married and not understanding marriage and relationship dynamics like that getting in the way of, oh my god, I can't make any decisions of my own work and autonomy without considering my other partner first? I can't even just go out to Bunnings and buy a lock for myself, put it up on the door, and they can't question that? Does my partner have to question every decision I make, especially when it's me trying to get work done in my office? I'm trying to wrap my head around this one because I can see an argument for it, but I don't agree with the husband's side of this one. I hate it when people know that I'm trying to work and they intentionally interrupt me and destroy my focus, and I can't imagine with OP here how pissed off they would be in the middle of a work meeting to have him barge in, knowingly, having this happen multiple times in the past. I completely understand OP's frustrations given those considerations. I'm gonna say not the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, Malik Yahweh says, "You just want to pretend like the kids and I aren't here." No, mate, there's an obvious response to this that might help get it through to him. You say, "Yes, I want to pretend like I'm away from home in an office while I work, and I'd like for you all to pretend the same." What you're asking is no different than it would be if you worked 5 hours a day in an office and he desperately needs to respect that, not the arsehole. She's definitely not the arsehole, he just doesn't want to parent the kids and now he'll have to. And also, be prepared for him now to retaliate by filling the kids' heads with how mummy doesn't love them anymore, and other toxic stuff like that. This feels like it isn't far away. OP, threaten to rent an office space elsewhere so you can work. Your husband clearly isn't willing or able to be a homemaker, and that's generally cool because lots of people aren't, female or male. But it isn't cool if it's affecting your family's potential and potentially your marriage, and particularly if it's something he said he would do, but now won't. He's being an arsehole, you are not the arsehole. Janie says, not the arsehole. If he respected your boundaries and working time, then the lock wouldn't be required. Agreed. I feel OP's pain. My hub still works outside the home, and I've been at home since this all started. Sometimes when he gets home, he starts having conversations, and I have to remind him I'm working. OP needs to set better boundaries and remind her husband that if she's in the office, pretend she's at the office, and he couldn't ask her any of these questions because she's not there. If not, the lock stays. I'm sure that if he was still working, he wouldn't appreciate her barging in or just allowing the kids to come to him to fix zippers or brush hair while he was working. He doesn't appear to value her job or that she's actually working. I think a lot of couples have struggled with this during the pandemic and so many people starting to work from home. The only thing I can think of that OP could have possibly done differently is say to him, either stop this or I'm going to install a lock on the door, and then proceed as necessary. I have a feeling they'd end up in the same place they are now though, and he should have listened the first time she told him to respect her work time. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you did like it, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below, and make sure to just interact with everyone in this community. I love each and every one of you that I get to see on a daily basis. And don't forget, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I love you. You're on the screen right now with the YouTube members as well. If you see yourself, give yourself a pat in the back. You guys help me continue this YouTube journey. You keep me going. I see you guys everywhere. I see your messages, and thank you so much for supporting me. I really love every single one of you. But with that all said, I'm going to be signing off now, guys. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.